Hi, everybody, and welcome to another comics loving edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Always delighted to be talking with authors and artists, and have a special love of comics that makes its way into the episode. So, delighted on this episode to be talking with comics creator Dave Justus. Dave, thank you for
Hello.
jumping in. Hi. Hi. You have a magnificent halo effect, I'll tell you. Um, it's the genius of creating right over there, I think is what that
Right, right. I have to replace that bulb often.
is. I get that. Recharging is its own thing, definitely. So folks out there probably know you most prominently for Fables, I would say. That would be one of
If
the titles.
if folks out there know me at all, which is questionable,
Ah,
yeah, probably from Fables: The Wolf Among Us, or possibly from Ever After.
yes, yeah. You have like 100 plus comics out in the world. Is
That
that right?
can't that can't possibly be true. Maybe if you're counting all of the individual chapters online of Wolf Among Us and also the collections in print.
I got you. Okay.
If
Maybe
if we're
that's,
doubling up, then maybe so. But
yeah,
it's a small number, but you know, it's quality over quantity,
that's
right?
right. That's
Sure.
right. Absolutely. If it's the book you love and if it's the story you love, then uh, the number isn't really the thing. So, um, yeah, glad to be talking with you about that work. And what was it about the world of comics that attracted you? Were you a young comics reader?
Yeah, I was. I got very into Robotech when I
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
young. I think I was about 8 years old when that premiered, and just was fascinated by it. And one day, my folks and my sister and I were at this like nostalgia shop up in the Dallas area, and they were looking at like autographed pictures of movie stars and stuff like that. And this place had a small comics rack, and on that rack were the first four issues of Robotech the Macross Saga in comic book form. And of course, I had to have them
Yeah.
because I was obsessed at that point. And so, reading them over and over from cover to cover, I realized that there was a credits box, and it said someone had written it. And I thought,
Hmm.
well, if that's a job, that's the job I want. So from about 8 years old, I knew what I wanted to do, and just, in some way or another stuck to that path until it finally paid off.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Yeah. The story of persistence and finding what you want. And I don't remember when it actually clicked with me that, oh, there are people that make these.
Hmm.
Like I read several issues, and then I guess at some point in the 90s I really connected with like the Batman adventures and started paying attention to who was doing what. Um,
Right.
but yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they kind of seem like a magic trick at first when
Hmm.
when you're little. It's like, every month there's going to be a new one of these things that's completely different from the last one of these things, and it's just fantastic. And then yeah, once you finally figure out that credits box, and that you can draw these things or color these things, or do whatever, I think probably that's a light bulb moment for a lot of young creators,
Hmm. Hmm.
in their reading, when they're like, I can do this.
Yeah, yeah. So how did and I'll confess my knowledge of Fables actually started not that long ago because I discovered Fables in the Batman crossover that just came
Mm-hmm.
out like last year or the year before,
Right.
with Brian Level doing that. And so how did your connection to that world start out?
Well, I was working at Austin Books and Comics
Hmm.
here in Austin, Texas, and one of our customers was Lila Sturgis, and at that point, she and a couple of other customers were putting together like a writing group. and
Love it.
they were looking for one more person to join, and all of them thought that someone else in the group knew me a little better than they did. So I weaseled my way in without realizing I was weaseling, but I that's how I got in, was that everyone else was like, "Oh, someone else knows Dave." Uh, but Lila, of course, was working with Bill Willingham on Jack of Fables,
Hmm.
and then the two of them launched House of Mystery, and I had a chance with House of Mystery to do part of an Exquisite Corpse story where five different writers passed the script around and tried to write each other into a hole. So I got to follow Willingham on that, and then Lila had to wrap everything up at the end. But that's how I got my foot the tiniest bit into DC Vertigo.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when it was proposed to do an adaptation of the Wolf Among Us video game, they went to Lila first, and Lila said, "You know, I'd like to do that. I've got a lot of stuff on my plate. Could I have a co-writer?" And thankfully, because they had already seen 4 pages of stuff from me, that was enough for them to go, "Yeah, why not?" So
Nice.
yeah, so it was all about kind of being in the right place at the right time with the right people.
Awesome,
Um,
awesome.
Very grateful that it all tumbled out that way.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds like a major story of collaboration, which I love, and sort of paying it forward to fellow creatives. So very cool, very cool.
Absolutely.
And
And
hats,
that was always Lila's thing, was like, I wouldn't be here without Bill Willingham. He opened the door for me, and now I'm going to open it for you. And someday in the future, you can open it for someone else. And I think that's the right way to look at this business, because it
hmm,
really is. It's hard to get a foot in a door, and
yeah,
you know, I think that if you can get in and make any kind of name for yourself enough that people trust your opinion, and you can say, "Hey, take a look at this person. They've got
hmm.
something to say." You have to do it. You owe it to yourself and to comics to do that.
Yeah, it just makes the world better, the world of comics, for sure, to have
Yeah,
creative voices. And yeah, I have Lila coming on sometime in the next month or two. She's kind enough to reach back out and agreed to do that, so I'll have to mention, hey, you were getting some attention and some kudos here from Dave. So
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, love that.
Absolutely.
So, I was going to ask if it's kind of a two-pronged question. One being the work that you're proudest of, that could be a title, an issue,
Mhm.
part of an issue, whatever it happens to be. And then the work that you want to do. What's the dream? What's the project you want to tackle?
Um, the work that I'm proudest of, I I think that the thing that is most me was our very brief run on public relations,
Hmm, hmm.
which was when Lila and I first started talking back in 2008. She said, I always wanted to do something that was like Arrested Development, but in a fantasy kingdom. And I
Yeah,
went, that sounds great. And
yes.
almost immediately we started working on it together. So that's how long that had been going on before it finally premiered in 2015 or whenever it was.
Hmm.
But just in terms of being something that is full of dumb jokes and making fun of fantasy tropes and everything, I that public relations is the thing that has probably the most undiluted me in it.
Love it,
Uh,
love it.
which is not to say that there's not some stuff I might go back and change if I were doing it today, but and I think especially if I'm just picking one issue of it, I think I would pick issue 10, which was the one that got us the Ignatz Award nomination, which
Definitely.
came completely out of left field for us. But that was we decided very early on that this is a comic book that's a sitcom,
Hmm.
and that was the episode where our two leads get locked in a freezer and flash back to earlier episodes and try hard not to fall in love with each other. So it and it's full of really dumb jokes and a couple of really smart jokes, and I love it. You know we lost the Ignatz, deservedly so, that year, but I still have a soft place in my heart for that one.
Oh yeah, yeah, and to have your work recognized is a nice feeling, I'm sure.
Yeah,
And one of those where it's an honor to be nominated, one of those kind of situations.
absolutely. And I mean,
Yeah,
like I say, it's completely out of like we had no idea. I don't know how things are proposed for nomination with the Ignatz Awards, but we had no idea it was coming, and it took us very much by surprise, and we were very humbled by it.
yeah,
So
yeah, very cool. And I love the satire, the humor. I love that approach. And playing with those fantasy tropes is just that's it's a good time. It's a really good time.
thanks.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask, it sounds like collaboration with Lila Sturgis is right up there as being one of those rewarding experiences. Any other collaborations or experiences that you'd like to talk about that have been especially positive in the world of comics now or in work to come?
Um, well, pretty much everything that you've seen from me on the comic shelf has been in collaboration with Lila. I have pitched a number of things, that I've written solo, and uh, so far not had any luck with that. So she must be my lucky rabbit's foot there. Um, but I will talk till the cows come home about the other people I've collaborated on, the artists and the colorists and the letterers and the editors and
Mhm.
everyone involved in the books that I've done. That's they're not comics without those people. They're just scripts.
Right.
So to have artists like David Hahn, Steve Ralston, Luca Rossi, so Sam Lotfi, all sorts of people working on public relations, to take the silliness in our head and make it real. To work with someone like Travis Moore on Ever After,
Hmm.
whose work, when we were doing The Wolf Among Us, he did every third chapter and he just blew us away every time. It was very easy to agree to him being the Ever After artist. He's fantastic, and he's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other projects that we put together to pitch that just it wasn't the right time at the right place, kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I would work with any of these creators in a heartbeat again. It's I've been very lucky to have such positive experiences just across the board with amazingly talented people.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean I don't know what more to say. Every
Awesome.
time I see a newly drawn image or a newly colored page or the lettering proofs, like every time, to me, again, it is that magic trick. Even though I know it's coming from someone, it
Hmm.
it's magic. It's something that someone has done that I have no idea how it's done, and it just blows my mind. So
Yeah. Yeah. You get to see your vision on the page and
Yeah.
uh, be surprised by it at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also I just realized we did not get your dream project in there. We talked
Oh,
about the
right.
Ignats, but we didn't talk about the thing that you would want to do.
Um, that's so hard to say. I, in terms of like, a project for the big two kind of thing,
Hmm.
the comic that made me fall in love with Marvel back in the day was New Mutants,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I think of all the books that might ever be on offer at Marvel, I think that I would most want to try and tackle that.
Hmm.
Um, just I don't know. It was those kids were the right age for me at the time I discovered them, and so we did a lot of growing up together. And they're somehow they managed not to age along with me as I got into my 30s and 40s. But I still it's a group of characters that I think are all very well realized, and I would love to try and tackle them and see what I could do with them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's in terms of like work for hire, I think that is the number one thing I'd like to do.
Yeah, I had Bob McLeod on a couple of episodes back, so it was great to hear the story of how that book came together and his initial vision for the book and some of those pieces. So I also have a really warm place in my heart for New Mutants as well.
Nice. I will
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Anything as far as web spaces, social media that you would want to share with people that they can go and check out for works in progress and such, and any upcoming works that you'd like to mention before we wrap up and I make sure we didn't miss anything.
I'm less online these days than I used to be.
I really don't blame you. I really
I
don't.
my Twitter is Dave underscore Justice, and I have avoided Twitter for a few months now, and I may
Hmm.
continue avoiding it. I've posted one or two things, and that may be about the rate that I'm going at these days.
Yeah, yeah,
As I get closer to stuff coming out, I will probably pick that up a little bit because I know that's how you have to do these days is be social.
right.
Let people know that things are happening. Um, the thing that is currently happening, I can't talk too much about, but when you had Joe Eisma on a little while ago, he hinted at it. We had just been freshly greenlit at that point, and it was
Hmm.
really nice. He and Lila and I are going to be doing a young adult graphic novel for Mad Cave's Maverick imprint,
Love
and
that.
uh, it's still in the early stages, but everyone is real excited. We're getting just like from the top of their company on down, everyone who has touched it is just so encouraging and so cool and ready to make this a big deal. So
Awesome.
I feel like it is landed at the right place, and we definitely are looking forward to the magic that will happen when those pages start showing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely so. Looking forward to that as well. And I think I probably said this when Joe Eisma was on, but I have a special place for young adult and middle grades graphic novels, being an English teacher, former literacy prof, academic person, but then also really like what Mad Cave does. I like their
Yeah.
books. Um, and so I'll be really glad to see that out in the world, and I'll be looking for galley reviews on NetGalley and other places if I can get a sneak peek at some point to share a review of it as well. So, um, yeah, sending the good vibes for all of the magic in that book, and I know students that will enjoy that.
Awesome. Well,
Yep.
thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that I missed that you want to make sure to share, I always like to ask just to make sure that I don't miss anything. And I'm on like my fourth or fifth cup of coffee right now, so hopefully my brain is working
Well,
well.
I had to switch over to Mountain Dew at noon, you know.
I get you.
Um,
I get you.
it's rough. I don't think so. I mean, like I say, I don't consider myself to have a huge footprint in comics, so I'm humbled to be here in the first place talking to you. Um, and if people are interested in the book that's coming up and just put that on their radar for sometime in 2024, then my work is done here. Uh,
All right. All right.
so
Sounds good.
thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Be glad to talk with you anytime and always glad to talk about comics. And as I said at the beginning before we hit record,
Hmm.
I'm one of those people, and I just encourage people out there, there are those titles that are sort of known in the world, but I'm getting to the place in my life where I see the same story over and over. So it's nice to sort of explore the other avenues of storytelling as well. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I appreciate what you're doing in comics and glad to share about it and glad to talk with you.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Yeah.